Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the first class since our Surgical Society meeting, and it went off very well. Congratulations to all the students, and thank you very much for all the teachers for their input. The first class is about lymphatic drainage of head and neck, and also a brief description of neck dissections. It is a very important topic in terms of the as surgical understanding of the head and neck lymphatics and lymph node groups, and also the nuances of neck dissection. So Janani, without much Swan, you can start.
Yes, sir. So, good evening, everyone. My presentation is on lymphatic drainage of head and neck and few basics on neck dissections. So, lymphatic system represents an accessory route through which fluid flows from interstitial space into blood, essential part of body's immune system, and the lymphatics ultimately deliver lymph into two main channels, that is right lymphatic duct and thoracic duct. Right lymphatic duct drains the right side of head and neck, right arm, right thorax, and it empties into right subclavian vein. And through thoracic duct, it drains the rest of body and empties into left subclavian vein. We have superficial group of lymph nodes and deep group of lymph nodes. Among superficial group of lymph nodes, we have submental, submandibular, buccal, and preauricular, postauricular, occipital nodes, and anterior cervical and superficial cervical nodes. Among deep group of nodes, we have infrahyoid or prelaryngeal, pretracheal, paratracheal, retropharyngeal, and deep cervical group of nodes. So coming to occipital nodes, it receives lymph from scalp, drain into deep cervical lymph nodes. And parotid node, it receives lymph from scalp above the parotid gland, lateral surface of auricle, external acoustic meatus, and lateral wall of eyelids, and it drain into deep cervical node. And these buccal nodes and feather facial nodes lie over buccinator muscle. It receives lymph from eyelids, cheek, midface, and it drain into submandibular nodes. So we are discussing this because these are of surgical importance, as most common tumors to metastasize to them are melanoma and squamous cell carcinoma, because these are the drainage regions of skin. And mastoid or retroauricular nodes, it lies on lateral surface of mastoid process and receives lymph from strip of scalp above the auricle and posterior wall of external auditory meatus. It drains into deep cervical nodes. And these submandibular nodes, which are present also on the superficial surface of submandibular salivary gland, it also drain into deep cervical nodes, and it receives lymph from most of the parts of scalp, nasal cavity, upper and lower lip, and anterior two-third of tongue, and posterior mouth and floor of mouth and vestibule. The submental group of nodes that lie between chin and hyoid bone, between the anterior bellies of digastric muscle. So it receives lymph from tip of tongue, floor beneath the tongue, and lower incisors, central part of lower lip, and skin over the chin. And they drain into deep cervical nodes through submandibular nodes. The cervical lymph nodes, according to relation to deep fascia of neck, it is divided into superficial and deep cervical groups. Superficial groups lie over the deep fascia of neck, and deep cervical lymph nodes lie beneath the deep fascia of neck. So superficial nodes restricted to upper region of neck and is found in the angle between mandibular ramus and sternocleidomastoid. It receives lymph from earlobe, adjacent part of skin, secondary to preauricular and postauricular nodes. The deep cervical nodes can be superior, inferior, and anterior. Superior group includes lateral jugular, anterior jugular, and jugulodigastric, and inferior group includes jugulohomohyoid, supraclavicular, and anterior deep cervical includes prelaryngeal, thyroid, pretracheal, and paratracheal groups. The superior deep cervical lymph nodes drain into inferior deep cervical nodes, otherwise called supraclavicular nodes, and which further drain into jugular trunk. The jugular trunk will empty into right lymphatic trunk that is corresponding to the right side, and on the left side it will drain into the venous angle. Venous angle is where left subclavian vein joining the internal jugular vein. Finally, everything enters the systemic circulation in SVC. So examination of lymph nodes, anterior and posterior lymph nodes. Before going into the detail, first we should position the patient and position ourselves. For examining this anterior and posterior cervical nodes, we'll be standing behind the patient and turning the patient's face to the opposite side. So it is examined like this. The anterior nodes are examined like this, and this is the posterior node. And submandibular lymph nodes will be flexing the patient's neck, standing behind the patient, and we'll be feeling the submandibular nodes. And submental nodes, again, we'll have to stand behind the patient and roll the fingers below the chin in midline. And parotid nodes, in front of ear, we'll have to roll the fingers against the maxilla. And post-auricular or mastoid nodes, we'll have to roll the finger behind the ear. Occipital nodes are palpated behind the ear at the base of skull. And supraclavicular lymph node, the patient head is to be tipped forward, that is, he has to bend forward bit, and index finger of examiner is placed in the triangle and the area is palpated with rotatory motion. So coming to the levels of lymph nodes, there are seven levels. So level 1 is of level 1A and 1B. 1A is called submental nodes and 1B is submandibular group. Submental nodes involve all nodes above hyoid bone, that is between medial margin of anterior digastric muscle below mylohyoid, and 1B is submandibular nodes below mylohyoid muscle. And level 2 consists of upper jugular, and level 3, here I can show you here. So level 2 will be upper jugular, and 3 will be middle jugular, and 4 is lower jugular. Coming in detail, level 3, that is mid jugular, the nodes between hyoid bone and cricoid cartilage arch, that is the anterior to posterior sternocleidomastoid and lateral to internal carotid artery. So level 4, that is inferior jugular, the nodes between cricoid arch and clavicle. Level 5 is also called spinal accessory chain nodes. All nodes from skull base posterior down to posterior border of sternocleidomastoid to level of clavicle. So level 6 is also called central compartment nodes. The nodes inferior to hyoid and above manubrium, that is between medial margins of common carotid artery and internal carotid artery. Level 7 includes mediastinal nodes, that is behind the manubrium, extending up to innominate vein.
Janani, can you just repeat it, because this is very important, and
yes,
so go back to the diagram and just repeat it so that everyone can understand and follow.
Yes, sir. So level 1 is submental group. Level 1A is submental group. 1B is submandibular group. Level 2 is upper jugular. 3 is middle jugular. 4 is lower jugular group. And 5 is the spinal accessory group, that is present in the posterior triangle. And 6 is this central compartment group. Yes, sir. And the 7 will be our mediastinal group.
Okay. Anybody has any doubts about this? Because in the exams you will get asked this question very frequently, and especially when you are asked about, as for example, a carcinoma of the buccal cheek or carcinoma of the floor of the mouth or thyroid, you will be asked what level of nodes are you going to dissect if you are going to dissect it. So you should know this. If anyone has any doubts or clarifications, please do so now. Nishant?
Nothing to add, sir.
Dr. Lakshman sir, is there anything to add, sir?
Nothing to add, nothing to add. We
Okay.
will talk about the various kinds of dissections later. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
if is everyone clear about the levels of lymph nodes? If we are clear, we'll proceed further. Okay, carry on, Janani.
Yes, sir. So neck dissection has proved to be essential and central procedure in treatment of head and neck cancer. Neck dissection that are performed today or modifications and refinements of first description by Kreil in 1906. So Kreil was the first who discovered this neck dissection in 1906. So classification, there are four types of neck dissection: radical neck dissection, modified radical neck dissection, selective neck dissection, and extended neck dissection. We'll have to prepare the patient preoperatively for neck dissection, as it is an extensive procedure. Informed and written consent in that benefits, risks, and complications of the surgery is to be documented, and parts preparation according to the neck side of the neck which we are going to dissect is to be done, and prophylactic antibiotic is the very important thing to be given here. And position of patient: under general anesthesia, patient will be put in supine position. Head is turned to opposite side of dissection, hyperextended and resting on the head ring. Sandbag or pillow has to be put on under the shoulders, so that head end should also be elevated 30 degree. So next we should decide on the type of incision, as there are many types of incisions, and the goal of our incision should be to acquire the adequate vascularization of skin flap and adequate exposure. Consider localization of primary tumor, adequate protection of major vessel if sternocleidomastoid is resected. Consider reconstructive surgery if needed. So if at all we are planning for any reconstructive surgery, our incision is to be according to that, and include previous surgical field. That is, if previous scar of any incision for biopsy or scar of previous surgery is there, we should include that in that scar in our incision site, and produce acceptable cosmesis to the patient. These are the various types of incision: classical Y incision, and variations of Kreil's incision like Gluck, Scobus, Colney, and Martin incision. The drawback of all these Y-shaped incision and variation of Y-shaped incisions are trifurcation incisions. So the trifurcation point or narrow flaps because of these incisions are prone to breakdown. And the utility incision, hockey incision, apron flap incision gives good exposure, and there is no trifurcation in these incision. I'll show you in my further slides. And McPhee incision, that is two horizontal limits the exposure. However, there is low incidence of wound dehiscence in this type of incision. So here, all these Y-shaped incision, this one, Schobinger's, and horizontal T-shaped incision, and these Y-shaped incisions are trifurcation. This is trifurcation point. So it tends to break down while healing. And this McPhee incision, will make two incisions so that 3 flaps are created here, and there are less chances of wound dehiscence in this type of incision. These are utility incisions which will give us good exposure. All these are utility incision with good exposure. So radical neck dissection, however, it is not commonly performed nowadays. We'll start with radical neck dissection now. The extent of dissection will be superiorly inferior border of mandible and inferiorly clavicle, and anteriorly contralateral anterior belly of digastric muscle, hyoid bone, and sternohyoid. It includes dissection of all nodes from level 1 to 5. Here, spinal accessory nerve, internal jugular vein, and sternocleidomastoid are removed. And the indications of R&D includes significant operable neck disease that is N2A, N2B, and N3, with tumor bulk near to or directly involving spinal accessory nerve or internal jugular vein, extensive recurrent disease after previous selective surgery or radiotherapy, and clinical signs of gross extranodal disease. And the contraindications for radical neck dissection includes untreatable primary tumor or unresectable neck disease, patient unfit for major surgery and distant metastasis, simultaneous bilateral neck dissection. So complication with this radical neck dissection includes shoulder syndrome because of spinal accessory nerve injury. Coming to these steps, first we should decide on the type of incision after anesthesia. So we'll incise the skin with 10 blade down to and through the platysma and retract the platysma. Our dissection should proceed in subplatysmal plane as the chances of bleeding is very less in this plane. Based on the incision, if at all we are going to use McPhee incision, lower and middle skin flap is raised, and if it is trifurcate incision, anterior and posterior flap is raised. And after making all these incision, we'll have to concentrate on 4 areas. These are the 4 areas of special attention. That is lower end of internal jugular vein and junction of lateral border of clavicle with lower edge of trapezius and upper end of internal jugular vein and submandibular triangle. So first we should proceed towards ligating the lower end of internal jugular vein. So this is done to prevent the metastasis of tumor while we are handling the specimen. So in first lower end of internal jugular is to be ligated, and before that we should identify internal jugular vein. Internal jugular vein is identified between sternal and clavicular heads of sternocleidomastoid muscle, and after finding the bluish colored vein, when we identify, we'll have to open the carotid sheath and expose the internal jugular vein and ligate it. So here, in between the heads of sternocleidomastoid, our lower end of internal jugular vein is identified, and it is ligated and divided at lower end. And the second special attention area is junction of clavicle and anterior border of trapezius. Here we start the dissection at lower end of trapezius, and we should progress our dissection in the supraclavicular region. First, inferior belly of homohyoid is encountered and it is divided. Deep to omohyoid, transverse cervical artery or vein is encountered. Multiple sharp and blunt dissection is done up to prevertebral fascia. And beyond prevertebral fascia, we should not proceed our dissection, because immediately beneath the prevertebral fascia, phrenic nerve and brachial plexus will be there. As we see in this diagram, this is our trapezius muscle. So when we are progressing our dissection from the clavicle towards the supraclavicular region, we'll be encountering this brachial plexus. So we should avoid injury to the brachial plexus in this region. So further dissection is continued upward in the anterior border of trapezius, and we should clear the posterior angle, and prevertebral fascia is left intact. And next step is to identify the accessory nerve. Accessory nerve usually runs in the roof of posterior triangle. And the third area of special attention is upper internal jugular vein. Here, posterior belly of digastrium is retracted to expose the internal jugular vein and accessory nerve. So, before ligating the upper end of internal jugular vein, 2 structures we'll have to identify, that is vagus nerve and hypoglossal nerve. Vagus nerve will run along the internal carotid artery and common carotid artery, and hypoglossal nerve, it will run across the carotid bifurcation. So while dissecting across this carotid bifurcation, we'll have to be careful because it might cause bradycardia in patients, and it will settle down when we further go through our dissections. If it is not settling, lidocaine application can be done. So occipital artery, when we are dissecting through this region, we'll be encountering occipital artery, and it will be the source of bleeding in this dissection. So here internal jugular vein is identified, ligated at the upper end. In this diagram, we can see here through the retractor, we are retracting this posterior belly of digastric muscle, and upper end of jugular vein is identified and ligated here. Next area of attention is submandibular triangle. The contents of the triangle, like lymph node, fatty tissue, submandibular salivary gland, everything is removed from here. While separating the submandibular salivary gland, the downward traction of submandibular gland, the lingual nerve is extended, and suture will be placed around the ganglion that is responsible for secretomotor function. So hypoglossal nerve should be identified here, and facial artery to be ligated before removing the specimen. Sir, any doubts so far?
Anybody? If you have any doubts or any clarifications or additions, please speak now. Okay, continue, Janani.
Yes, sir. And extended neck dissection, here removal of one or more additional lymph node group or non-lymphatic structure, or both relative to radical neck dissection. Here, in addition to radical neck dissection, we'll be removing additional nodes like parapharyngeal or superior mediastinal or perifacial or paratracheal nodes, or the other non-lymphatic structures like carotid artery, hypoglossal nerve, vagus nerve, or paraspinal nerve. Extended neck dissection is not usually performed routinely. The modified radical neck dissection is a preservation of one or more. In addition to, we'll be removing the 1 to 5 levels of nodes with preservation of one or more non-lymphatic structure. That is, either we'll preserve spinal axillary nerve or internal jugular vein or sternocleidomastoid muscle. The structure that is preserved should be specified when we mention our diagnosis or procedure in our notes. So like modified radical neck dissection with preservation of whatever, like spinal axillary nerve or internal jugular vein or sternocleidomastoid, we should mention it specifically. So modified radical neck dissection, the boundaries are same like radical neck dissection. In clinical N1 or N2A or N2B disease, accessory nerve is preserved. If contralateral neck is also dissected at same time, both nerve and internal jugular vein is preserved. That is, both spinal accessory nerve and internal jugular vein is preserved. In case of carcinoma thyroid with lymph node mets, all three major non-lymphatic structures are preserved.
Janani,
Sir,
Saurav is asking what are types of modified radical neck dissection. Do you know? What are the types of MRND?
That's what, sir. When we are preserving only the three things: preservation of accessory nerve or preservation. That is the thing I mentioned here, sir.
Yeah. So I think it is type 1 is preservation of one structure, type 2 is preservation of two structures, and type 3 is preservation of all three.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Saurav?
Yes, sir.
Sir, while I was reading, I was seeing that type 1 is particularly where we preserve the spinal accessory nerve. Type 2 is where we preserve both the spinal accessory nerve and the sternocleidomastoid.
Yes.
And
Type 3 is
all three. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Does anyone know who actually described the modified radical neck dissection for the first time? Anybody? Actually, George Washington Cryle, Senior, was the person who described radical neck dissection. His son, George Washington Cryle Jr., described the modified radical neck dissection. Just an interesting tidbit. Okay, carry
Yes,
on.
sir. Yes, sir. So, the steps to follow while preserving accessory nerve. Here, accessory nerve is to be preserved while raising the flap at posterior triangle during our initial steps only. So, we should locate the nerve in its most cranial part as it enters the neck along with the internal jugular vein from the jugular foramen. So, internal jugular vein and the accessory nerve will come together at the root of neck. So we should locate the nerve there only. And superior retraction of posterior belly of digastric muscle exposes the internal jugular vein and the nerve. And the nerve enters the sternocleidomastoid muscle at the junction of upper and lower third of sternocleidomastoid muscle. We can trace the nerve by placing the clamps on the edge of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So by in that way, we could preserve the accessory nerve. And sternocleidomastoid is spared by mobilizing the deep inserting fascia from anterior border of sternocleidomastoid muscle, and the muscle has to be released posteriorly also. So anteriorly and posteriorly we should free the muscle from inserting fascia, and the muscle is to be dissected from below the fascia, and it has to be retracted upward. And neck dissection is difficult if sternocleidomastoid is preserved. So for convenience, sternocleidomastoid is divided sometimes at caudal end, and after the procedure, we'll suture it back to its normal position. Internal jugular vein is spared, like in lower neck vein. Lower neck vein is located after careful dissection across clavicle from trapezius to suprasternal notch. So supraclavicular nerves and vessels along with sternocleidomastoid is divided here. Sternocleidomastoid lies directly over the internal jugular vein, and the muscle fibers are divided. So we could see the blueness of internal jugular vein through the carotid sheath. And the carotid sheath is opened and internal jugular vein is exposed. Upper part of internal jugular vein is identified by retracting the posterior belly of digastric muscle. Then the vein is traced over its entire course. However, we do all these things. It's always difficult to preserve all these structures when doing the difficult neck dissection. So it's always necessary to be very much clear about the anatomy of these structures. So the selective neck dissection, the cervical lymphadenectomy with preservation of one or more lymph node groups that are routinely removed in radical neck dissections. The dissected levels or sublevels should be labeled always. Lymph node groups are based on patterns of metastasis. So in oral cavity cancers, we'll be removing level 1, 2, and 3. In oropharyngeal, hypopharyngeal, or laryngeal cancers, we'll be removing level 2, 3, and 4. And in thyroid cancers, we'll be removing level 6 nodes. And there are various types of selective neck dissections. Supraomohyoid, it includes level 1, 2, 3 dissection. Extended supraomohyoid 1, 2, 3, and 4. And lateral node dissection, it involves 2, 3, and 4 only. Here posterolateral, it includes level 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anterior or central, it includes dissection of level 6 nodes. So for selective neck dissection for oral cavity, the cutaneous branches of cervical plexus and posterior border of sternocleidomastoid marks the posterior limit of dissection, and the inferior limit is junction between superior belly of omohyoid and internal jugular vein. For CA tongue, the selective neck dissection will be from 1 to 4 nodes, and midline structure like floor of mouth or ventral tongue, bilateral selective neck dissection has to be done. That is from 1 to 3 bilateral dissection has to be done. For oropharyngeal cancer and hypopharyngeal and laryngeal cancer, 2 to 4 dissection has to be done. Here upper limit is skull base and lower limit is clavicle. The anterior limit will be lateral border of sternohyoid and stylohyoid muscles, and posterior limit will be cutaneous branch of cervical plexus and posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. And for laryngeal carcinoma extending below the glottis, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 has to be removed.
Janani,
Sir?
Vanita is asking a question. Vanita, go ahead.
Sir, what is planned neck dissection and salvage neck dissection, sir?
Okay. Janani?
Sir, so planned is elective neck dissection that is usually performed for selective node dissection, and salvage is while performing the surgery when we find some lesion or suspicious lesion, we'll be removing that level also. I think so, sir.
I don't think that is exactly correct. Vanita?
Sir, it's both of these terms comes in post chemo radiation therapy patients, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
So planned means we will plan it after 6 weeks of dissection, 6 weeks of chemo radiation therapy, sir. It used to be done before the introduction of PET CT, sir. So now salvage neck dissection is usually after the complete course of chemo radiation therapy.
You just remove those nodes which are enlarged after
Yes,
with the PET CT. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's what. Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir. Yes, sir. So for midline structures, we'll be removing the level 6 nodes, that is central compartment nodes. We call it central compartment dissection, which includes removal of paratracheal, delphian, perithyroidal, and nodes along recurrent laryngeal nerve. The superior limit of our dissection will be body of hyoid bone. Inferior limit will be suprasternal notch, and lateral limit medial border of carotid sheath. Thyroid cancer with METs into level 5, we'll do selective lymph node dissection from 2 to 6.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now,
Sir, one thing I forgot to mention, sir. And complications of these neck dissections include like post-operative complications like bleeding. While doing the surgery, we could expect bleeding as we are handling with major vessels here. And in a patient with history of irradiation to the same, like head and neck cancers, we could expect carotid burst out during the incision only. So these are the major complications, and also we could expect chylus leak because we are dealing very much close to the thoracic duct. So chyle leak or chyle fistula can happen at later date. And infection, because head and neck dissections are very much crucial. Infection has to be prevented in these patients. And also when we are dealing near the carotid sinus, so we are bradycardia and cardiac arrhythmias might happen. So all these complications have to be explained preoperatively. And the need for tracheostomy in case of bilateral neck dissection is also we'll have to explain all these complications before surgery.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. I think that was a good, description of the whole process, the levels of lymph nodes and the areas that specific lymph nodes drained, and also the extensive description of the various neck dissections. Sir, Lakshman sir, your comments and questions.
All right. Good presentation, Janani. I think you covered most of it.
Thank you, sir.
I was about to jump on you and say, what about complications? But you retrieved the situation and you mentioned it, which is very nice. We really don't want to jump on students at all. There are two errors, I think, which we need to correct. One of them you mentioned about carotid burst during surgery. The word is not used during surgery. It always, when you take out the sternomastoid and there is no cover for the carotid under the skin, then with adhesions and perhaps the weakening with radiotherapy and things like that, A burst out is referred to a post-op situation after a radical neck dissection, or even a modified radical where sternomastoid is removed. That's the first
Yes, sir.
step. He also mentioned fairly easily about the removal of level 5 in thyroid. Very, very, very rare to remove level 5 nodes in thyroid. It's usually 2, 3, 4, and 6.
6. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
That is something that you have to, all the students have to remember.
Yes, sir.
Good presentation, good slides, but I have a few comments about the slides and the presentation in general. Again, constructive comments, and it's not a criticism as such. One of them, you used a picture in slide 3 about with a girl with levels of nodes in the nodes, levels or whatever the description of the nodes.
Yes, sir.
I always prefer that we should use Indian pictures. It was a Western picture. Number 2, the eye was not covered. So even if the picture that you got, the eye was exposed, you should put a black square on it so that the identification is not known. Okay, it's very, very important. And also remember, when you download pictures from the net, there are copyright issues. It's always better to ask for have your own slides, pictures. If you don't have it, ask one of us. We'll somehow find one for you. That's never a challenge. Okay. And when you were talking about the names of the jugulo-digastric, mid-jugular, and posterior triangle, all those nodes, then and there you must give the levels of nodes. You mentioned it 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, but it would have been nice if you had mentioned the newer terminology, which is the level of the nodes, and given the audience the equivalent. So what is level 1 in terms of the old name? Okay, submandibular, submental, like that. What is level 4? It is the lower jugular group. That kind of equivalence, if you had given, it would have been very nice. You did read the slides quite a bit. Please get over that habit.
Okay,
And while your description of surgery was quite extensive, it would have been much, much better had you put some pictures in it. You had a few, but right next to the text, if you have a relevant picture, it's always available, then your description of a step would have been a lot more realistic.
Okay, sir.
Those are the comments I would like to make, but all in all, a good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Niranjan, are you there? Is Niranjan there? No. Okay. Teachers among, I can't see who is there among teachers. Anyone is there? Abdul?
Ramakrishna sir is there, sir. Ramakrishna sir.
Ramakrishna sir?
Ramakrishna sir is there.
Good evening, Ramakrishna sir.
Good evening, sir. I joined little late, but it was a good presentation, sir. No comments.
No comments. Okay.
No comments.
Nishant?
Sir, sorry, sir. I had to step out for an emergency call, so I missed almost half the presentation. I'll go through it on the YouTube and probably get back to Janani if I had anything to say.
So someone has asked management of carotid blowout, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Janani,
Sir.
it is called carotid blowout rather than burst out.
Okay, sir.
As Dr. Lakshman said, it usually doesn't happen on table. It happens post-operatively. So management of carotid blowout, do you know anything about it?
Sir, no, sir. No idea, sir.
So stenting, sir.
It's a major emergency.
Stenting, sir.
I think stenting will be difficult. Any vascular surgeons here from Aster? I think the problem is.
I think so.
The problem is, as Dr. Lakshman mentioned, it is post-op in patients who have had radiotherapy, or because the sternocleidomastoid cover is lost and there is infection in that area, and when the carotid becomes soft, the problem is even to ligation of the carotid is the only option, and you have to accept that it would lead to other complications. But doing any reconstruction in these circumstances is very difficult, very challenging. So I think ligation of the artery is probably the only salvage option in this circumstance, because it is a real hyper malignant emergency. if you can actually salvage, it is only to ligate the artery, because I don't think you can try to reconstruct or anything at this stage, because the artery itself is quite soft and probably diseased because of either infection or lack of cover or radiotherapy changes or whatever. So Dr. Lakshman sir, is there anything you want to add, sir?
I would agree with it. It has a high morbidity. The idea is to salvage the life of the patient. So you would pay the price of perhaps a neurological deficit and ligate the artery.
Ligate the artery, yeah. Any other questions or clarifications? PGs? So generally, I think it is a topic which which you can't drag on anyway. But she has stuck to the 40-minute time, which is usually the attention span of anybody. So I think it's a good presentation. I think I also told you that you should include diagrams which next to your neck dissection, so that you can explain with the help of the diagram which Dr. Lakshman mentioned. But
Yes, sir.
probably you didn't find the pictures or whatever. If you had asked me, I would have given it to you, or at
Yes,
least
sir.
I would have pointed you in where you would get it. I think that was probably the only criticism. Otherwise, I think your presentation was good. It is a difficult topic, but you have done it well. If you had actually put the labels of where level 1 and as Dr. Lakshman mentioned, what is the old one and new one, it would have been very good, because people tend to get confused about the old terminologies and the new terminologies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll correct myself, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good.